Well, today, you guys, I am working in an area of my garden that is, well, actually, it's not even in my garden. It's in off of one of the workspaces of my garden, and probably one of the ugliest areas. So this is definitely a behind the scenes kind of lesson today. But first, I want to say something. I was listening this morning to a podcast, and it was about coaching, something not related to gardening. And there are so many wonderful garden coaches out there. There's coaches in a medley of different disciplines. You guys, am not a garden coach. I am self-taught. I have no formal training. My school, I have often said, my degree is just from the school of trial and error and hard knocks, and gardening in what I think is probably one of the most difficult areas in the country in which to garden. But I am no expert. What I do is I just share my trial and error and my successes with you guys so you can garden along with me. I try to never share anything that doesn't work. I try to share the things that don't work for me. But if you are new to gardening and you're not formally trained either, then here's my best tip. Just watch YouTube like this, read books, ask questions, Google whatever question you have. You may or may not find the answer, but it's all part of a learning experience. I now am relearning things that I thought I learned years ago. So basically, what I'm trying to do here on these videos is just let you know that it's just the fun of it. It's learning new things, and it's trying out skills and just testing and experimenting. And that's what this section is all about. That was kind of a long-winded introduction, but that's what this section is all about. So previously, you saw a much prettier image of all of this mess right now. It was on my front porch. I had all sorts of potted bulbs. I had tulips, daffodils, muscari. I had all sorts of beautiful things that were in pots surrounding my window box on the front porch. They're now spent, and obviously I don't want them to stay there. Now, I'm trying something this year that I've not had great luck with in the past, but I'm going to try a new system, and that is trying to overwinter my flower bulbs. All of these bulbs, the iris, the tulips, the crocus, all of them, the daffodils, and I'm going to do it in a different way. This past spring was the first time that I really had all sorts of bulbs in pots. Now, I know, number one, that to get the bulbs to come back, I have to allow the foliage to brown and die back. And that's why I've put all of these pots over here. They're next to my compost pile. Again, if you want to see my compost tour, you can go back to yesterday's post, and you can see how I try to grow things ingeniously out of my compost pile and how I use it. But this area over here is just kind of a mess. It's obscured by a large euonymus hedge, so nobody can see it except for me, actually. And so this has proven to be a really good place to store these pots. So this one right here was filled with tulips, and you can see that I have let them die back. The squirrels, my nemesis, have started digging around the perimeter of it. But what I'm going to do this year, I know that I could probably take these bulbs out, I could try to save them, and I could try to replant them next fall. But that means then I have to go through the entire process of potting them up again. So my experiment for this year, which may or may not work, is I'm going to leave them in these pots. And one thing I want to make sure is that they don't get too much water. Now that's kind of easy because they're not in garden beds. They are just in this location here where the only real moisture that they get is from Mother Nature. So I'm not going to overwater them. They are not going to rot in place. So then when these pots are done, when the foliage is done, I'm just going to remove it. If any of these bulbs, like this one, have been disrupted by the squirrels, I'm going to put them back in place. I don't have any on hand right now, but I'm going to feed this pot itself with some bulb food, and then I'm just going to let it be. And I'm going to see if I can get them to come back in this pot that I don't have to replant next year. I may learn that they don't want to come back, that only a fraction of them come back. They may come back but be kind of lackluster. But I will have learned a lesson, and I will have learned something in trying to salvage these bulbs. So I'm going to do that with this messy array of all of these pots. Some of the smaller ones, I've got some, these were some forced grape hyacinths that are in here. Some of these I might plant in my compost pile to come out of the grid. Who knows? But I'm going to salvage as many of these as possible. You may say, oh, these pots are kind of ugly. I've got a lot of these in leftover Southern Living pots because these were tucked into prettier baskets, galvanized metal buckets, concrete pots. They were tucked into something that was far more aesthetically pleasing. But right now, it's just sheer functionality. So this area where larkspur has gone to seed, sometimes I'll find basil has gone to seed, sedums grow up in here, but right now it is just a functional, messy, utilitarian area off of my driveway next to my compost pile, and it is, I guess, my own little plant laboratory because I'm experimenting for next year.